Hey, Pete.
You're fired.
I'm Adam Manis.
And I'm Peter Martin.
And you're listening to the You'll Hear It podcast.
Daily jazz advice coming at you.
About to be solo jazz advice coming at you. Apparently, I've been let go.
We're both fired because it's hot in here.
I feel like
still
fire.
Hot.
I feel
it's
like I'm
literally
on
getting
fire.
hotter. We're not doing headphones today. I can't take it.
I can't take it either. We're just gonna freeform this topic of how to hire and fire.
I want to fire the. Well, we can't really fire the AC person here because we still need to get it fixed. I like to fire them right after it's done for taking so many days. How about that?
This is ridiculous.
Yeah,
and we haven't found out if the part is here. If the part's not here, this is going to be all week, buddy.
That's
I mean,
right.
you don't care because you're leaving.
Well, no, I care. Come on,
But for
man.
Andrew and I
want my
have to-
people. I don't mind. I was born in Florida, man. This is like normal.
It's your
Grew
thing?
up like this.
Yeah, right.
Okay, so we're talking about how to hire and fire. I think specifically in the context of mostly bands. I mean,
Yeah.
that's what we're talking about, right?
Yeah,
Have
yeah.
you had any experience on either end of those?
I've had experiences on both ends of this, and both have their challenges,
Right.
For sure. And I think both, you get better with experience, for sure.
Have you been getting better lately?
Yes, I have been. I have been.
Yeah.
No, it's never either hiring or changing the lineup up or whatever you're doing is never easy.
Yep.
Have you ever been fired?
Yes, absolutely.
That's where I've learned how to do a lot of this stuff.
I've been fired, and most recently I think for the first time ever, I fired myself off of a gig.
Really?
Yeah, the opera.
Oh, the opera.
I
that's right.
absolutely fired myself.
You were like, looked in the mirror and you were like, Peter, you're fired.
That was actually a new experience. But you know what I think all these have in common? And we talk about mindset a lot here. And, if you have the growth mindset, we remember the other day we talked about scarcity versus abundance.
Yeah.
When you realize that if you look at the world of music and just the world in general as there being abundant opportunities, then this should all get a lot easier, because if you're firing somebody, if you're being fired, the way you should respond should not be a defense. And now, look, this is hard in reality, but when
it's messy.
from the standpoint of being like, wow, I'm never going to get another gig. No, there's plenty of gigs. You will get another gig.
For sure.
I mean, if you keep getting fired off of gigs, you need to take that as a signal to maybe deal with some of the other things that we've said in other episodes as far as practice, get better, be professional, be conscientious, be talented, little things like that. But when you have that abundance mentality, it's kind of like, it's a drag, especially if you love doing the gig and playing with that band. But you're like, you know what? Maybe the next door is even going to be better. So you're already thinking along those lines. It makes it a better pill to take.
Every time that I've been fired from a gig, I've gotten way better after those experiences. Because it's been a wake-up call maybe of
Absolutely.
like, or it's just been like, okay, so what I've been doing wasn't working for this person.
Yeah.
I need to kind of rearrange how I approach this music, right?
Yeah.
Like I need to figure this out so that I can not repeat these same mistakes.
Yeah.
But then also it does light a fire.
It does.
Under you to be like, you know what? That's not a good feeling. I want to be in demand. I want to be,
Right.
wanted. So maybe I need to step this up a little bit. And sometimes it could be the best thing that happens to you.
Yeah,
For sure.
and I think the biggest thing, if you do want it to be a positive and maybe even the best thing that happens to you and something for your growth and for your improvement, the biggest thing you have to get over, and look, you just got to get over this, is the shame of it.
Yeah.
See, most times we get caught up in Latin, like the injustice of it and all these things that we want to say, no, I shouldn't have been. I'm supposed to be doing. Forget about all that. What you really is, you're shameful. You're afraid people are going to be like, wow, he got fired. But the thing is, everyone's been fired.
Every great jazz musician you've ever heard of has been fired, probably multiple times.
Exactly. And I mean, even beyond, look, Michael Jordan didn't make his high school basketball team when he was a freshman or sophomore or something. So what if he'd been like taking that shame and rejection? No, he took that in. So the quicker you get over the shame and the embarrassment, I guess, maybe it's more embarrassment.
I think it's a little embarrassment.
Yeah.
Sure. Yeah. No one. It's never fun.
No, it's never fun. But when you get to the point where you can kind of revel and be like, wow, how can I grow? What can I do to really push me forward, myself forward?
Yeah.
That's when it gets interesting.
Okay, so let's talk about if we're on the other end of this. Let's start with the hiring. Let's start with the positive.
Okay.
So how do you go about hiring the I don't want to say the best people, because I really think it's the best fit for what you're trying to do.
Right. Best person for the job.
Best person for the job. That's not always the best player.
No.
or maybe your best friend.
No.
But it's some kind of combination. It's some kind of alchemy that you have to work out.
Right.
Of this person is going to fit into this
Yeah.
group of people that I'm bringing together.
Yeah.
In the best way.
So I think you're already hitting on it. The group of, so there's the great player, but there's definitely that mindset of like, can they play great in this situation?
Yes.
Are they available, first of all? Although I would just say that some people are like, I remember actually some great players really great, like legendary jazz musicians saying like, asking me for a recommendation of like a drummer, and I suggested somebody, and they're like, they would never come play with me. They're always busy. I'm like, no, give them a call. You never know. That's that same kind of abundance, scarcity kind of thing.
True, yeah.
So first of all, don't ever be afraid to like reach for the stars or whatever.
Sure, yeah.
But
You'd be surprised.
Yeah, but I mean, get somebody that's going to work great in the situation, and then I think you have to evaluate the situation, like how social is it. There's some situations where you just have to get a certain skill, and it really doesn't matter if they get along, if they're in
one-off concert.
Yeah,
Totally.
And something that say has a really specific like hard part that needs to be read by a flautist or something.
But they're the perfect ones.
They're the perfect ones. Yeah.
The personality almost doesn't matter. At that
it almost doesn't matter. I mean, if you can get somebody that's fun to hang out with after the gig, that's a bonus. But if you're in a regular band situation,
if you're going on a 40-city tour.
yeah, because it affects the music, and it's not just about like, look, you have to put the music first with all this.
Yeah.
If you put the music
That's
first,
number one for both these.
Yeah,
things.
number one, put the music first,
Right,
because if you do that, then all these decisions become a lot easier.
Yeah, that can come with experience, because there's always a tendency to go with your boy.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Exactly.
And that sometimes your boy isn't always the best fit.
Exactly.
For what you're trying to do.
And we miss out on so much, and I'm so glad there's such an awareness talking about diversity in terms of gender, race, geographic, economic, all these things. Sexual orientation, everything, like in traditionally we're like, we call our boys, even like the way we say that is like, how many great players are we missing? So like, make sure when you're looking, cast a wide net, because first of all, you're going to get to a bigger diversity of players that way,
right,
and better players the more that you have, and you're going to get something that's a bonus to not having that same way of thinking maybe that you do. So they're going to bring something even better and more diverse and interesting to what you think that you want to do.
That's
because
so
it's
true.
not all just, especially in jazz, this is not just about we're trying to get robots to execute. We're trying to get creative people that bring something to the table.
Yeah, reach out to people who personally and musically challenge you.
Yeah.
And will challenge the music in a positive way. I think that's very important. Good point.
And I've found that like when I've played with and kind of pushed the envelope and gone with people that maybe I wasn't sure how they're going to be, like it's been such a, like if you keep the music first and they're really good players, even if they're like, you think you don't have anything in common, you realize you have the music in common.
For sure.
That brings people together.
For sure.
Yeah.
All right, so let's talk about the uncomfortable situation of having to fire someone. Have you ever had to fire anybody?
I have, a couple times. Not really a whole lot, so I don't have a huge amount of experience. But to me, I mean, maybe I'm just a cold-blooded murderer. But I don't really have a problem with that because, again, I sort of just take the music. Like, as long as I'm doing it for musical reasons and not out of spite or because he or she, like, did something offensive to me personally that had nothing to do with the music. Like, if you keep the gig in mind, then it's just about, like, if you're the one who's empowered to make these decisions, that's just part of your job. Is like, if there's somebody that can better fit into the thing, of course, I think it's important to give somebody a chance. Like, communication before you fire. I don't like this thing in any kind of situation where it's just like you're fired. Like, you have to give them a chance, and not a chance in terms of like
you're on thin ice.
You're on thin ice, because then it's you're just setting them up,
For
and
sure.
it's not about even like whatever legal requirement you have to do. It's just about like, have you put them in the best situation to succeed? Because sometimes somebody, be it from an employee to a band member that's your band that you have a lot of control over, it's just as much your responsibility to make sure that they're the right fit. But sometimes they're not. So I think just having that frank discussion with them is important. Now, I don't like this thing of like what you just were saying of like 3 months, like say, look, you've got 3 months to get it together, because then you're wasting their time and your time. And I think it's better to just sit them down and say, look, it's not working. We both know this. I could go through the charade of saying you're going to be on probation for a while, but we know that's not going to work. I think that you would succeed in other situations. I'm happy to recommend you based upon these criteria. For this, the way I have my band now, or the way this band is going, it's just not, your skill set is not a good fit. It's probably not even what you want to be doing if you really look at it.
Yeah, and the way you just phrased that, I think, is a good point, because you don't have to give them every single detail
No.
of why. Like, I'm firing you
they
because
suck.
you missed that change in the
Yeah.
last 2 gigs or whatever,
And it's not even good because then they're going to come back and be like, oh, well, you missed
and
it.
then, yeah, and so like you don't want to get into a dialogue. So
No.
when you actually have to do it, keep it short. If they ask why, be as vague and as forgiving as possible with
Yeah.
it. Though it's not the right fit. It's time for a change. I think is a good strategy for that. But yeah, you don't have to like give them a list, and in fact, that's just going to be counterproductive to the conversation.
Exactly, because it's really, I mean, if they've been around that long, I mean, if it's like a short-term thing, and then like you bring somebody on and then you're having to fire them immediately, that's probably your fault.
Yeah.
For like, if you made the decision. If you kind of come together,
Yeah.
then there's like a working out period or whatever.
Did you get fired by Willie Aikens ever?
I don't think I actually got fired, but I was never like, I mean, I played with him. I was
You weren't
never
in
in
his
his
band,
band
yeah.
long term like you. And I was so young, man. I mean, I was barely hired. Everything was on probation. I was 15, 16 years old. I didn't know what I was doing.
Yeah, I was 17 when he fired me, and he just called me, and this was like a model of how to fire people. He goes, "Hey man, it's not working out.
Right.
Keep practicing, and I'll talk. I got another guy for the gig. I'll talk to you
That's
later."
so great.
Yeah,
It's so respectful and honest
Yeah.
and like,
and
know,
I did. And then a year later, he hired me again. He hired me back.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, one of my biggest times of development I was fired by Betty Carter. I was fired. It was never like, it was a little bit, I had some personal family stuff I had to deal with, so I took some time off. But she also told me, like, if I didn't move to New York, I couldn't be in the band any longer. I played with her for 9 months, and it was like, I was sort of the only person around that time that wasn't living in New York. I kind of fly up there on my own when we started touring stuff, and I didn't even really tell her at first. I was just like, I was up there a lot.
Yeah.
But when she sort of found out, if you're not gonna live in New York, you're gonna be fired. And so I was a little bit obstinate about that, and because of my family situation and stuff in New Orleans, I really needed to stay there anyway. So she basically fired me over that. But what it made me realize, like, that lit a fire under me. I was like, wow, if I don't go back to New York, because I'd lived in New York before that, I'm like, I better be so good. And I wasn't that good. I mean, I was good enough to do the gig,
But not enough for her to be
exactly
like, to live in New Orleans. And
yeah. And so I started getting a mentality of like, okay, if I'm going to play with the big boys, the Betty Carters of the world,
Yeah.
then I better be so much better than everybody else
Right.
that they don't mind flying me up there or the inconvenience, because it is an inconvenience. New York,
Sure.
especially back then, was like the center of the jazz world. It's a little different now.
Yeah,
it's a
I
little
understand
bit
where she's coming from, for
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah. And like, who was I? So at the time, I wasn't like, what's wrong? I mean, I totally understood it. So
Yeah.
that was more of but that did help me a lot, actually.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Well, this is a fun conversation.
Yeah, I was kidding. You're not fired, by the way.
Oh, thanks.
Yeah. But you are on
I should
probation.
hope not. We have two more podcasts.
In 2
recorded.
days, they check back with me.
All right, so it's still hot as hell in here, but you can. We're still making jazz educational courses at OpenStudioJazz.com.
We could make a fried egg on top of this as well.
Yeah,
So
my computer's burning up. Go to OpenStudioJazz.com. Check out our new platform. It's like lightning fast. There's a bunch of hip new features like quizzes, practice routines, clapping as I emphasize.
yeah. Oh, that's
things.
too hot to do that.
Too hot.
And
yeah.
also, You'll Hear It. Just so folks know, it's still in effect. Go to you'llhearit.com. You can click on podcasts there. None of that's changing. That's our blog. Everything's free. Information on the podcast.
We might have a major You'll Hear It announcement coming up soon. I
Oh,
don't
we
know.
do. We
You know
do.
about that?
Yeah. Well, you know what? Because we got this travel schedule, should we tease it out now? Well, we could just do it with one word. But first, we're gonna say one word as we go out.
Well, hold on. We have a listener tune
Yeah.
that you're probably listening to right now. This is Blue by Ziza Muftik. One word though to tease the new You'll Hear It.
You'll Hear It Premium.
I was the one, always searching, finding. I was the one, silly one I love, the one I love, the one who was quietly patient